It is Wednesday, June 7th. I'm Tim Darnell. Welcome to this edition of Political Update, broadcasting from our Atlanta News First digital streaming desk here in Midtown Atlanta, joined by our producer, Maria Moreau. And we have a lot of political headlines to cover. If you want to know everything happening politically in Atlanta and Georgia, you come to the right place, as we are continuing to bring you the most extensive and comprehensive political coverage of politics in Atlanta, Georgia, the Southeast, and the nation. Starting off first, 2 days ago, the Atlanta City Council, a majority Democratic Party-affiliated city council here in our capital city here in Georgia, voted 11-4 to approve a development that has proven just to be highly contentious and controversial. The Atlanta Public Safety Detention Center, a $90 million facility located straddling really the city limits of Atlanta and unincorporated DeKalb County. It was a marathon session 2 days ago, and early Wednesday morning, or early Tuesday morning, I should say, around 4 or 5 a.m., the City Council did approve funding for the facility by an 11-4 vote. That has not been the end of the story, however. Earlier this morning, a group of so-called Cop City activists announced a measure outside City Hall where they are hoping to bring the issue before Metro Atlanta voters on a November referendum. This is a very highly complex and time-compressed endeavor that they are undertaking, and time will tell whether or not City of Atlanta or whomever, whatever voting electorate, will have the opportunity to vote up or down on the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. It is set for a possible opening at the end of 2024. This is an issue that has divided Democrats on the council and Democrats across the state. An issue of law enforcement training and the Democratic Party is one that is very contentious within the confines of the Democratic Party. This is an issue that is not over yet, and we anticipate there will be many, many more developments as we follow the highly controversial Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. Moving on to some other headlines this week. Among the 2024 Republican White House contenders race, we have already seen several candidates over the last week join in the race, and now just yesterday, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, a longtime ally and advocate of former President Donald Trump, has thrown his hat into the ring seeking the GOP White House nomination in 2024. Christie, of course, is the former New Jersey governor and was a loyal ally of President Donald Trump for a couple of years into his administration. The two have broken apart their friendship and now are facing each other in an effort to become the Republican nominee for White House in 2024. On Wednesday, later this evening, Trump's former Vice President, Mike Pence, will also join the ranks of a rapidly growing field of Republican White House contenders in 2024. Mike Pence now will become, when he announces later this evening, he filed his paperwork only 2 days ago, but the announcement is coming today, later this evening, on Pence's 64th birthday. Mike Pence will become the first former running mate since in 80 years to challenge another running mate. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's first vice president was John Nance Garner. Garner served for several years but broke off from the Roosevelt ticket and ran against his former boss in 1940. It's very rare for two running mates to oppose each other for another White House nomination, but that's exactly what is happening this evening when Mike Pence announces his candidacy for president in 2024. Speaking of his former boss, President Donald Trump will be making his first official campaign visit to Georgia since he announced his re-election campaign last November. This weekend in Columbus is the Georgia State Republican Convention. Also attending is former Arizona gubernatorial hopeful Kari Lake, who will headline the event Friday night. Former President Trump will headline the event Saturday evening and its closing ceremonies. Also attending, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, widely considered to be an all but sure gubernatorial candidate in 2026 here in Georgia. One person who will not be attending is Governor Brian Kemp. Governor Kemp has taken a lot of great measures and pains to distance himself from former President Trump and is really urging the Georgia Republican Party and the national GOP not to look in the rearview mirror as the issue of a quote-unquote stolen presidential election in 2020 continues to remain a major topic of conversation and a major talking point for both Donald Trump and Kari Lake, who are both attending this weekend's Georgia Republican Convention that will be covered by our own outstanding political reporter, Doug Reardon. Talking about Democrats and Republicans, I recently had a fascinating conversation with an organization known as No Labels. Now, this is a nonpartisan organization and truly a nonpartisan, bipartisan organization consisting of top well-known Republicans and Democrats seeking to put forth a unity ticket for 2024, consisting of both a Republican and a Democrat, whom they are hoping will have ballot access in time for the November 2024 election. That conversation I had was with Dr. Benjamin Chavis Jr., one of the most legendary civil rights leaders of the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even today. He is the national co-chair along with former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who is a Republican. Dr. Chavis is a longtime devoted Democrat, but he, along with other leaders at No Labels, believe that the American electorate should be given a choice between what may turn out to be a rematch of 2024 next year. Here's my interview with Dr. Chavis. Dr. Chavis, why is it so hard for third parties to get on the ballot here in the United States? We've had Republicans and Democrats for over 100 years in some form or another, possibly even longer. Many American voters, you hear this every election cycle, many voters believe that the country would be so much better served politically and from a policy standpoint to have other choices rather than Republicans and Democrats. Why is it so hard for third parties to get a foothold in the American political system?
Well, thank you very much. On behalf of No Labels, which is a national organization, we're not yet a third party, but we are engaged in an effort in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, to get ballot access. We call it an insurance policy. So in case after Super Tuesday next year, the two choices are similar to, or the same as the choice of 2020, polling shows that most Americans don't want to see a repeat of 2020. They want better choices. So that's what the No Labels is doing. We want to offer an opportunity, an infrastructure that will provide the opportunity for a unity ticket. A unity ticket would be a Democrat and a Republican, or a Republican and a Democrat to run together to provide common sense solutions to our nation's problems. We think one example of bipartisanship working just happened with the debt ceiling. If Republicans and Democrats did not work together, our nation would be in a terrible default of its national debt. And there have been other successes. In fact, the only major successes in the legislative agenda in Congress have been those that have been bipartisan. So No Labels believes in bipartisanship. We work from the middle. We don't work for the far right or the far left or the extremes. We think extremism in America doesn't really offer opportunities or solutions to our problems. And so at state levels now, we're actively engaged in getting ballot access, not only in Georgia, but in Arizona and North Carolina and Maine. In all of the 50 states, we have workers now getting people to sign to get ballot access for No Labels.
Now, when you're mentioning ballot access several times, No Labels, from what I understand, already has ballot access in Oregon, Alaska, Colorado, and Arizona. How does a movement like this go about getting ballot access?
Well, each state has different regulations. For example, in Arizona, we had over 40,000 people to sign, and Maine we needed 4,000. We got 6,400. So each state has different pluralities of the number of people to sign. Ohio, you have to have 59,000. So it depends on the state law. We are very diligent to make sure that we follow each state's election laws. So that we can get ballot access in all 50 states in the District of Columbia. So it's a grassroots organizing effort, to answer your question.
Now, describe what the launching pad is. Your organization, No Label, says it exists to serve as a launching pad for a national unity ticket. What is that?
Yes. Well, the launching pad would be in 2024, particularly after Super Tuesday, which would be in March of next year. The American people will have a good sense of who the two major candidates are going to be, representing the Republican and Democratic parties. And if the choices are the same as they were in 2020, then we believe that gives a real opening for a unity ticket. But the unity ticket would not be possible if we didn't do the homework now in 2023 to get ballot access. That's why for us right now, ballot access is our top priority. We also, in a few weeks, are going to be issuing a document called Common Sense, which is sort of the platform, the political policy positions of No Labels. Again, bipartisanship, civility, creating and defining common sense solutions to our nation's problems.
Your career is legendary. You knew Dr. Martin Luther King, obviously, who had strong ties to Atlanta. You're a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You were arrested along with 9 other activists in Wilmington, North Carolina, now internationally known as the Wilmington 10. You're a member and a leader in the NAACP. You worked for Robert F. Kennedy's campaign in 1968. All of
Yes.
these associations have been historically tied to the Democratic Party, and yet here you are advocating along with former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican, arguing for bipartisanship. Are you disenchanted with today's Democratic Party?
No, I'm not disenchanted, but I want to encourage. I'm still a lifelong Democrat, and Governor Hogan is a lifelong Republican. So is former Governor Pat McCrory, a governor from North Carolina. Senator Joseph Lieberman is a Democrat. We are the 4 national co-chairs of No Labels. We work together very well on bipartisan issues, bipartisan solutions. I want to point out that No Labels helped create the Problem Solvers Caucus in the Congress of the United States. And this is a group of Republicans and Democrats that are working together. That's how we got the debt ceiling. That's how we got the infrastructure bill. That's how we got the CHIPS bill. That's how we got the funding for COVID when the nation was in dire needs of solutions for the COVID-19 pandemic. So bipartisanship makes a big positive difference, we believe. And certainly, no, I'm not giving up my Democratic credentials. As a Democrat, I think I have an obligation, and I should put this very succinctly. We put nation over party. We put the future of America over party. We want all of our people, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, to get a sense of how we all work together, not how we all stay divided. And that comes out of my work with the Reverend Dr. Martin King Jr. back in the 1960s. I was a youth coordinator in my home state of North Carolina, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Golden Frinks. And I learned a lot as a teenager working with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And in a sense, I'm still practicing those principles of the beloved community, those principles of the oneness of humanity. What happens when we all work together makes a big positive difference.
There are a lot of theories, and everyone seems to have an opinion on how or why the nation is so politically divisive. From your standpoint, what's the cause of all of this partisan bickering, so to speak?
Well, I think that as our nation, the demographics have changed. We're a much more diverse nation, but I see diversity as a strength, not as a weakness. We're a nation of immigrants, although most African people were brought here as slaves. But the truth of the matter is, we may have come in different boats, but we're in the same boat together now. Now we're not all positioned same. Poverty is still prevalent in too many of our communities. The lack of access. So we need to work on financial literacy. We need to work on ending poverty. We need to work on improving the education system. We need to have health care for all Americans. We need to preserve those programs that really help the elderly. I'm very concerned that our colleges and universities ought to be the best in the world, particularly in science and mathematics. So there are a lot of challenges, but again, it's interesting. This is 2023. This is the 60th anniversary of Dr. King's March on Washington. He gave the famous "I Have a Dream" speech 60 years ago. And look how we've made progress over the last 60 years. Now, are there still problems? Absolutely. Do we still have racial discrimination? Yes. Do we still have inequality? Yes. But in 60 years, we've made a lot of progress. And every major progress has come when Americans work together, when Democrats, Republicans, and Independents work together. And that's why I've decided to join and work and help lead No Labels.
We are wrapping up this week's edition of Political Update here on Atlanta News First from our digital screening desk in Midtown Atlanta, wrapping up our conversation with Dr. Benjamin Chavis Jr., legendary, world-renowned international civil rights leader who is serving as the national co-chair for No Labels. Let's say 1 year from now, or roughly a year from now, the Democratic Party has renominated President Joe Biden. The Republican Party has renominated Donald Trump. Who would you like to see on a national unity ticket, one Republican, one Democrat? Who would be your nominee for president? Who would be your nominee for vice president? If you had influence into that decision, what would it be?
That's a very important question, and it's a very transformative question. And we're working hard now in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, to get ballot access. So after Super Tuesday of next March, we'll be in a position, if the Democrats and the Republicans repeat their nominees as it was in 2020, and by next year, if the majority of the American people are still saying they're dissatisfied with those two choices, then No Labels will execute the insurance policy. And believe me, there won't be any shortage of candidates. We're hearing from a lot of people who are Republican, who are Democrats, who are independents, of various age categories, various standards, some from corporate America, some from the political structures across our country. There's a wealth of talent out there who are eager to offer our nation a better choice. And we will make that decision between March and April of 2024.
Well, we'll be talking with you in March and April of next year, if not before. Thanks to Dr. Benjamin Chavis, National Co-Chair of No Labels, and thanks to all of you for watching this edition of Political Update on Atlanta News First.